Hello, and this is a parent edition to managing stress. What I'm going to be talking about is focused on children who are young, maybe about 2, 3 years old, all the way up to upper elementary school. So that would be about 11, 12 years old. So a lot of this information that I'm going to be presenting is targeting that particular population and how your role as a parent can help children who are experiencing stress under these times. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get started with this. All right. So when we're talking about managing stress with children, I want you throughout this presentation to keep in mind that a lot of the behaviors that we're going to be discussing is something that is out of the ordinary, or maybe a change that you've seen in your child or in your children. So it could be something that you might have seen before, as far as, oh, he's always slept with me, or he's always been a nervous child, or, you know, she has had an episode or two of talking like a baby, or throwing a tantrum, or, you know, being a defiant child. But what I'm talking about are any changes or worsening of symptoms. So keep in mind as I'm going through the signs of stress in children. We're going to start with sleep disturbance, and this tends to be a very popular one with people of all ages. Whenever we're under a lot of stress, we are going to notice that sleep tends to be one of the top conditions that tends to change. Either we're sleeping too much or too little. My experience in working with children, what I have seen is that a lot of these children are not sleeping enough, which leads to a consequence of other symptoms, tantrums, anger outbursts, irritability, changing of eating patterns. So sleep tends to be the number one thing that needs to be addressed in order for you to improve a lot of the coping mechanisms that are going to be helping children. So a sleep disturbance is usually because it's a result of a lot of these children not being stimulated enough. They're not tired. They're not engaging in anything. So they're not really tired to go to sleep. And if you're thinking about like, oh, well, they're doing a lot of work, or, you know, they're playing online, activities that are sedentary, which means that they're sitting down for the majority of the time, either here or on the sofa, will not tire a child. So they need mental stimulation, engagement, a lot of sensory stimulation. So going outside and playing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Nightmares tend to be common, crying outbursts. So you're going to see either crying or angry tantrums. A lot of their behaviors will be outbursts. So unpredictable, a lot angrier, hitting, screaming, maybe more defiant than usual, arguing a lot with you. And you might have like, I have a child who always argues with me. That's normal. But again, we're talking about something that it's a little bit more constant, perhaps more daily. So that's what I'm thinking about. Eating too much or too little. I mean, when we think about it, all of us who are humans will have a change in appetite when we are under a lot of stress. So that's true, again, just like sleep, that's across the board with all humans. So we're going to have a change of eating habits, and we heard a lot about that during the pandemic. Complaints of stomach aches. Now, obviously, if we're having a change of eating, it could be attributed to the physiological effects of the change of eating habits or the quality of eating, and you might have stomach aches. Typically, children who tend to exhibit more anxiety tend to experience a lot of stomach aches that are not contributing from any other source. So it could be anxiety, and children, remember, children do not know how to verbalize their emotions very well, particularly the younger child. So we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. They don't know that they're scared, or that there's some uncertainty, or there's fears of the unknown. So they will have their sensations really in their stomach. They'll have some headaches as well, but it tends to be tummy aches. And that's the number one physiological complaint that we hear from children who are scared, nervous, or under a lot of stress. Separation anxiety. I can personally, as a mother, contribute this and see that there's some regressed behavior when it comes to separation anxiety, at one point my child was fine playing in another room by himself, but now he wants to be watched, or now he doesn't want to be alone. There could be going into a living room and doing work with the door closed and not wanting to be alone. It could be that the child has now gone to in-person school and feels fear of going to in-person school, even though last year it was perfectly fine. Think about all of the changes that these children are seeing and feeling, knowing that they've been hearing about this pandemic and illnesses and death. And then they go to the school where they have plexiglass, face masks, social distancing. That is an abrupt change in the child's environment of a place that they perhaps used to enjoy, and now it's a possible place where it's no longer safe. So know that you might experience a lot of separation anxiety from a lot of the younger children. Some older children even have experienced this, and I'm talking about middle school. So again, it varies with the ages, but these are common symptoms. They struggle to concentrate. We see it. Being in front of a computer, it can be engaging for a very short time. These children need a lot of breaks. So they're not able to sit still. They lack motivation because this is not a very common form of learning when it comes to the younger children. Older children might, and I use that loosely, might enjoy it a little bit more, but in reality, most children, if not all, learn better in person and a lot of engaging. So it's so difficult for a lot of our teachers and educators to really keep our children engaged. And I'm asking for patience on your part and understanding. So you're going to see a drop in grades. You're going to find that they're arguing, they don't want to do work, they just don't feel like turning things in. You're going to see a lot of failing grades or zeros due to not turning in assignments. My suggestion on that is going to be, if you are hammering a child constantly about do your work, finish this, study, you have to be paying attention. If your expectation is to expect the child to produce the same amount and quality of work that they were doing when they were in person, those expectations need to change. It's not realistic. We've never experienced what we are experiencing right now. And some of the dropping grades are to be expected, and we need to address them in a different way. So providing the child with constant breaks, with physical outlets, and I'm going to talk about that with the techniques, but I need for a lot of parents to really understand that teachers are doing the best they can under the circumstances and the limits that they have been given. And this is new for everybody. So we're going to see a lot of children who are going to be easily distracted and they don't want to sit still. Even as a professional, I need to take my physical breaks. So imagine a child, it's even harder for them. If adults struggle, children are going to struggle 10 times more. So again, some flexibility and accommodations will be necessary. They're going to be clingy. They just want to be with you all the time. And then it's going to drive you crazy. I've had so many moms tell me that the only place that they can get alone time is the bathroom. I've had even parents who are just, like, I'm just going to be quiet and stay up a little bit later because that's the only time that they get to have alone time, because a lot of this is so emotionally and physically draining. So when you have a child who's clingy, who is always with you, doesn't like to be separated from you, and is having crying outbursts, needs a lot of consolation, all of that is very draining. But know that these children are experiencing a lot of irrational fears. I've even had kids who start feeling that all strangers are a danger, all of them, that they might have the virus. And so they become hypersensitive to a lot of the messages that we were telling them to be cautious of. They might take it to the extreme. So let me go on to this next part. So we're going to be talking about how we're going to help relieve a lot of these symptoms, right? So make time for outdoor play, number one. I know that in our area, we're so blessed to have really good weather where the kids could be outside even during the winter time, engage them in outdoor play. The sensory stimulation is going to be helpful, right? So they're smelling, they're hearing, they're feeling, they're touching, they're physically moving. All of that is super encouraging. Engage in family play, board games. They want to feel connected. They need to be able to remember what it's like to communicate verbally with other people and not just through a screen or a phone or a tablet. So make sure that you're engaging in some kind of verbal communication and engagement to help build a lot of these skills that are going to help them communicate and verbalize the emotions that they're experiencing. Imagination play, creative play, coloring, drawing, building Legos, everything that will include no electronics. So when they're engaging in creative play, it's using toys, it's using boxes, it's drawing on paper, whatever you can think of that is not electronics. You can create a little nook or a little place, or even have like a bag where you can have them with their special little activities with Play-Doh. They can have their artwork. They can have a little stuffed animal. They can have a squeeze toy or something that's going to help them create an opportunity for them to just calm down. And sometimes kids do a really great job in telling you what they need. So get them into a place where they can have stuffed animals, art supplies, the Play-Doh, and all of those pillows and books. Explain the situation using simple language. That does not mean sit down and let's watch the news. The kids are not understanding, and some of the images that they're seeing are very disturbing. So please be careful to not expose them to a lot of news. You decide what is best for your child. You explain it to them. All you're having to tell them is to be careful, wash your hands, stay separated from people that you don't know. If it's a family member, we're all together, so we're all in this pod and we're safe. So explain to them when it is dangerous or when they need to take caution, not across the board, because children have a really difficult time in distinguishing that. They're black and white. So explain it using simple language and always be reassuring, telling them this is just temporary. We're going to go back to normal, or washing your hands is enough. Just don't touch your face and you'll be fine. When you start giving them those little words of encouragement, you start de-escalating the anxiety or the fears that they have. Provide physical comfort. A lot of children respond to hugs and kisses and, nurturing opportunities, hand holding, rubbing of the back, patting them, stroking them, in their heads, in their arms. They need that reassurance. Ask them what's going to help them feel better. And it'll be interesting to know what they have to say. Sometimes they'll say things like, I just want things to go back to normal. And then you will say something like, things will go back to normal. But for now, what can we do? So when you start including those parameters or those limits, they're understanding like, oh, okay, so that's going to happen. So let me do this. If maybe we can go drive by grandma's house and sit outside and see grandma, but you won't be able to get close to grandma. So again, parameters and boundaries, but still helping them engage in something that's going to be comforting. Bedtime routines or routines throughout the day are critical for children of all ages. When you have a routine during the day, it helps predictability and it provides comfort and security. Same thing with bedtime routine. You start conditioning a child, get off the electronics, let's brush our teeth, let's get our pajamas on, let's take a bath, whatever routine you want, but the routine needs to include downtime, which means disconnect from tablets, from computers, from TV, and just have them, maybe that's when they can have their creative time of Play-Doh, of coloring, of sitting on the table and just creating a little building blocks or whatever it may be. That can also be considered downtime. And then talking about the future in a hopeful way is reassuring. So reiterating, We need to make sure that we are avoiding watching the news in the presence of children. The news doesn't change so much. It's a lot of it is repetitive. Save it for you when you're on your own. Don't talk too much about the pandemic. The children are listening. They could be in another room, and I guarantee that they're listening to what you're having to say. Be careful about talking about it way too much. Monitor the use of electronics, provide guidelines, breaks. So, hey, you've been playing Minecraft for too long, or you've been on Roblox the entire morning, or it's already getting close to bedtime. It's time to shut that off. You are the parent. You are the one who is going to enforce the authority. Make sure that you're doing it consistently so that the child will start self-regulating, like, oh, that's right, I have to do this, or I have to be able to get this taken care of, or I need to prepare, or I need to calm down, or I need to take a shower, whatever it may be. Make sure that your child is sleeping 8 to 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep. So if they're waking up constantly due to nightmares or fears, we need to make sure that we address the sleeping as the top priority. And then stress can turn into anxiety if we're not careful. So they might start excessively washing their hands, or they might have tantrums even leaving the house for fear of what might happen if they leave the house, and extreme fear of germs. So again, be reassuring with them. And finally, when do you seek help? If the child is really having a difficult time getting through their day, and they're not able to eat well, they're not able to sleep an entire night, and it's been going on for an extensive amount of time, you need to seek help. When they're emotionally disconnected, sometimes you feel like, oh, okay, they're calm, but if they're doing, they're on electronics, and they're just plopped there with a very disconnected look on their face, that's not a good sign. Drastic changes in mood and behavior, the uncontrollable emotional outbursts. So a lot of anger or throwing, hitting, slamming, screaming, arguing with everybody and everything. That's not a good sign, especially when it gets physical and violent, because kids have a really hard time in calming themselves down, and they'll be explosive because that's the only language that they know how to speak. If they're just acting different than your kid that obviously because you know them better than anybody else, and there's something about them that's just not right, and they're acting different, that you just feel it, that they need to be addressed, please address it. And of course, if it's not only you noticing it, but then you have several people who are making those same observations, that's a good sign. Thank you so much. A lot of this information, if not all of it, will be provided to you in handout form, and so you'll be able to go back and check this out. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully all of this was helpful for you to get started. Thank you so much.